Oh, come on! Opinions are like assholes, and in today's video, I've got 5 of them. In my first ever list video, I'm in the mood to talk about 5 games that I'm pretty regretful of buying. Now, do I still own them? Most of them, because I'm a nerd and I want to buy all the games, so I won't get rid of them, but that doesn't mean I'm going to buy any sequels, reboots, remakes, reimaginings, or what have you. These are games that I either looked forward to buying and was disappointed in, or I was skeptical of to begin with and bought on sale and still didn't like them. Kind of like that time you went to go see Black Widow with low expectations and were still disappointed. Above all else, I want a game to be fun. Graphics and music are taken into account, sure, but gameplay is important too, and it's gotta be something that I actually look forward to playing and not something that feels like a chore. Now, just in case more than 20 people watch this video and some start getting upset, I do want to say that if you enjoyed any of these games, then more power to you, and these are just my opinions and I'm in the mood to talk some shit. So without further ado, here are 5 games that I regret buying. First up, we have Final Fantasy XV, or what many consider to be the bro chapter in the Final Fantasy series. What happens when you put Cloud Strife into a My Chemical Romance video? You get Noctis, an even more emo main character who brings along his merry band of bros who look like they just finished using up their gift cards at Hot Topic and whatever anime pop culture stores are going out of business at the local mall to go on a grand adventure. To be totally fair, I think the game looks great, or maybe it's just Cindy that I liked. I never found the characters in this very interesting though, and it took the majority of the game for me to finally care about them. The combat felt action-packed at first until I realized all I was doing was holding down the attack button while telling my bros to do various actions, and this felt more brain-dead than the random encounters against enemies a dozen levels under my party in the old Final Fantasy games. I also didn't like that magic felt like I was chucking grenades, or that I'd have to find the elements for the magic out in the world. Why can't my stuff just recharge in a tent? Or in that trashy RV where the bros all sit and talk about Strickland propane or Hank Hill's narrow urethra. Anyways, no, I'm not going to play this again. For what it's worth though, it's still better than the abortion that was Final Fantasy XIII, which I'm saving for another day. I should really be doing this on all of Persona 5's universe, but I'm just picking on Persona 5 Strikers in general today. The Persona games are known for being stupidly long, and as I get older, I feel that time spent a lot more than I used to if I'm not enjoying myself. I loved Persona 3 and 4, and despite beating Persona 5, I just could not get into it, and that made what ended up being a 120-hour game feel like a lot longer by the time I finished it. Maybe it's that I wanted Morgana to die in the fires of Cat Hell so I could never hear that awful voice again, or maybe it was because the first 20 hours of the game crawled by so slowly it felt like water torture, or sitting through a Hannah Gadsby show. They are one and the same after all. I'm saying all of this because Persona 5 Strikers, despite being an action game, has all the same traits as regular Persona 5, except that it's a Muso or Warriors game, and you're attacking anywhere from dozens to hundreds of enemies in a single fight. So if during Persona 5 you liked hours of pointless banter and you weren't afraid of wearing out the skip button on your controller while yelling at the game to get on with the plot, or you liked hearing most of the characters talk about how much they like meat and you didn't make an inappropriate joke about that, then you'd like this game. If you had fun progressing a little bit into a dungeon only to be told to go back to your hideout to, you guessed it, banter some more about going on to the next area and possibly stopping in between to eat some sort of mega super beef bowl at some ramen joint that makes weeaboos pants tight when they think about going to one in real life, then you'd also like this game. For me, I had heard that it was a shorter game, and I also really enjoyed both Dragon Quest Heroes games, so I was going to give this one a real go and sit through the dialogue if it meant that I could fight in real time and collect infused personas again. And despite my complaints, I honestly didn't dislike most of the characters the first time around. I thought that maybe I was the old curmudgeon and just needed to lighten up, and this game seemed like it was worth it. Also, and this is my own fault, I was once again fooled by the ultra-stylish presentation and effects of the game that are so flashy and cool-looking that even an epileptic would swallow their tongue while tapping the spasming foot of theirs to a catchy J-pop beat. Unfortunately, the combat is shallow button mashing, which granted is common with Muso games, with some light platforming and sneaking around to get the drop on enemies like in other Persona titles, and I realized this just wasn't for me and has been collecting virtual dust on my PS5 since then. I used to love open world games. I still remember my first time playing Grand Theft Auto 3, falling in love with Vice City and San Andreas, and getting the platinum trophies in the first 2 Infamous games, and playing through plenty of others. Many years later though, the glass is shattered, and all I see now in the more modern open world games like this are big empty worlds with lots of filler checklists. Biomutant looked great to me, and I was looking forward to playing it. You had these cool little furry raccoon-looking guys you could dress up in weird armor and they carry swords or guns or whatever, and the game looked really pretty. Then about 20 hours into it, I just couldn't bear to play it anymore. There's somehow a lot to do in this game, and yet feels like nothing to do all at the same time. You're in a post-apocalyptic world where you're searching through furniture, boxes, vending machines, all to get new gear, but it all looks retarded to wear and the inventory system is a cluttered mess. Pair that with combat that's advertised as being like Devil May Cry, but in practice has about a fourth of the depth, and I deleted it off my Xbox and never looked back. So before anybody calls me a sexist for ragging on Horizon, I want to point out that most of my favorite characters in media have been women. Tifa, Chun-Li, Cammy, Melina, Morrigan, Lady, Sarah Connor, Ripley, Blaze Fielding, Chloe Frazier, Lucy Quo, Buffy Summers, Melinda May, and so many others I could dedicate a whole video to all of these great characters. My friends have teased me for my love of the ladies, but then again, maybe I'm just more secure than they are. So with that said, I don't give Horizon a giant thumbs down because I hate chicks. I give it a thumbs down because main character Aloy has such a boring character arc that I felt zero excitement playing as her from beginning to end. I felt like I was playing this weird tribal version of the Star Wars sequel trilogy because frankly, this chick is just as much a Mary Sue as Rey is. Other than an ambush from some cultists toward the beginning of the game, she has virtually no struggles and she's just going from story beat to story beat being told how great she is and basically cakewalking through everything. It's a boring story with a boring main character. Exploring the world and hunting these robot animals is the game's only saving grace, and to the game's credit, it does look beautiful, except for maybe Aloy herself, who's got a bit of a man face that only got worse in the sequel. I'll never know what the rest of it is like because I won't even buy that one on sale to make fun of it. No, I saved this one for last because this game is so sleep-inducing that even talking about it could have the same effects as downing a bottle of melatonin after eating a bag of CBD gummies. What happened to Zelda games and their ever-shrinking amount of dungeons with every new entry? We went from having 9 dungeons in the very first game and are now down to a whopping 4. And for those of you who went to public school, that's less than half. And what's there isn't even very fun. The graphics in this are fine, and the story is actually good, but the overworld is empty with hardly anything to do in it. The Nintendo diehards are going to get upset and go, "But stupid head, what about all the shrines you can go in?" And to that I say, those aren't dungeons, they're just small puzzles where you go and do things like roll a ball onto a switch, or freeze some water to make a platform, or set some things on fire with a torch. Compare that with awesome past Zelda dungeons like the Forest Temple in Ocarina of Time, or the Desert Palace in A Link to the Past, and there's just this feeling that the game could have been a lot more. And what's most infuriating to me about this, and if you've played it you know it's coming, are the damn weapons breaking after just a few hits. I cannot overstate how much I hated that. If you get attached to using a particular weapon in this game, then you'll eventually be afraid to use it, because it's going to break and you don't want to look for another one. What in the f*** is the point of including all these weapons if you're penalizing the player for using them? Even the Souls games lets you repair stuff as it got used up, and I spent 80% of that game getting shanked by zombies with rusty knives or beat to hell by giant monsters. But this? Oh, you think that sword is cool and it's got a higher attack power than anything else in your inventory? Well, it'll break in like 6 hits and then you'll have to use whatever crap the enemies are dropping, or go back to using sticks in your inventory. Have fun! Screw that. When I play an adventure game and the cooking is more fun than, you know, the adventure, then it's because the game isn't fun. Tragically, the Nintendo stands are going to defend this game like they've got Stockholm Syndrome just because it's Zelda. Me? I won't be playing the sequel, and the original, like the others on this list, are on my own version of the Island of Misfit Toys, never to be played again unless I talk myself into thinking I was too hard on them to begin with. And that's all I've got for today's list. Did you happen to like any of these? Do you have a top 5 of your own that could fall into the ether and you wouldn't shed a tear for them? Are you one of the many people still upset about my reviews of Asterix and Obelix and Underhero and want to rage some more about those? Let me know in the comments, we're going to do this again soon. Congratulations! You're one of an elite few to make it to the end of the video. Reward yourself by hitting the round subscribe button in the middle, and then check out the other goodies I've got in the links next to it.